Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? This is the Tuesday, July 25th, 2017 version of the Kagro in the Morning Show. Good morning, how you doing? We have all new equipment here. Not all new equipment. New software, new apps, new updates on everything that isn't new. Everything that's missing, the only thing that's missing at this point is the brand new equipment. That comes next. This is the intermediate step. Thank you very much to Fripp for helping out with getting everything up and running. Couldn't have done it without him, of course. Can't do any of these things without the guys at Netroots Radio. Thumbs up so far. What do you say, Justice? Everything running just fine? Oh, levels way hot and buzzing. That is not just fine. Let's try and adjust things a little bit on the mic here. Well, like I said, with new apps, it's going to take me a while to even figure out where do I monitor such things. Here we are. Okay. Let's see. Well, we got the overdrive off, so at least that's not the one doing it. Well, we'll check through the various applications that we have and see where we might be able to tone things down just a little bit and keep an eye on things as to whether or not they're improving. If I'm blowing your eardrums out, I apologize. There's a lot going on today, but at least the equipment, at least it's functioning nominally. We'll see if we can get the levels adjusted along the way, and maybe this is a good week to do these things without Greg at the moment. You know what? I've forgotten when his schedule has him returning to us, but it wouldn't be today anyway. Today is Tuesday. We can cross our fingers that we get everything right for Wednesday when we have Joan McCarter joining us. And we'll see how things go on the Greg side of things. All right. Well, everybody's buzzing as well as my microphone buzzing. Okay, let's see. All right, well, we're adjusting as things are going. Thanks to Justice for bringing levels down on the other side, back away from the microphone. I just learned to get good up and close to the microphone. Okay. Well, we'll find our way through all of this. Maybe not. All right, screw it. The show's over. Goodbye, everybody. Might as well just unplug and take the day off. But too much to talk about, as I mentioned. Let's see. Hot topics for the morning. Well, of course, it is the day that we'll be watching the motion to proceed hit the floor in the Senate. The motion to proceed on what purports to be a health care bill, but is actually, of course, a tax cut bill. Which bill are we going to get? The original House version, some different version from Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, from someone else? We don't know. And we have only a couple of hours to find out. Also much in the news this morning, yesterday afternoon's speech from Donald Trump, who purports to be President of the United States, speaking to the Boy Scout National Jamboree. Now, my kids aren't at the National Jamboree, but my kids are, of course, Boy Scouts. And, well, that's going to be an issue of contention in and around this house and a couple of others. I imagine in the next couple of weeks we'll be most likely debating whether or not we want to call on the National Capital Area Council of the Boy Scouts of America to say something about, let's say, the content of the speech. Good point from Bill in Portland, Maine, who always starts us off with a morning tweet, and he did so this morning, but before even getting to that, making the excellent point that the Boy Scouts of America, well, okay, as an organization, I understand, and you're certainly entitled to defend the decision to invite the person who purports to be President of the United States to address the National Boy Scout Jamboree. Normally, that's not an issue. And, of course, as they point out in their response to inquiries about this issue, the President of the United States normally, again, is the honorary president of the Boy Scouts of America. Not a controversial position to take ordinarily. The fact that this one might be a child molester is a little bit difficult. Let's say troubled waters to navigate. But then again, the allegations have never fully been fleshed out and proven, so what can you do? You just have to let them hang out there and let the process play out. But the question of whether or not the content of the speech, the nature of the speech, can go without comment. Well, I don't see any reason why the Boy Scouts of America couldn't say, look, it's our normal procedure to keep the President of the United States as the honorary president of the Boy Scouts of America. Ordinarily, that's not controversial, but we do ask that if he comes to the National Jamboree to address the Scouts, that the topic remain non-political and non-controversial, and that didn't happen here, and we're disappointed in that. It's an awfully difficult thing to do for the Boy Scouts of America to take the position officially and to write it down that they condemn the President of the United States for his actions in front of the Scouts. But somebody has to make some mention, and they won't. I know that they won't. But I want to, I don't know, I guess we now put them on notice. I had to take pictures of my little Friends of Scouting car magnets. I don't know if you saw me tweet those things up. Those things are supposed to be on your car, by the way, to display your pride in having been a donor to the Boy Scouts of America. Well, that may be a little heavy-handed for me. I don't know how much pride I necessarily take in charitable donation. I'm happy sometimes to make those charitable donations. I don't know if it really necessarily rises to the level of pride, nor, I guess, really honestly, should it rise to the level of pride. But it's supposed to be displayed on your car to let everybody know that you're a supporter of scouting. And it's awfully hard to want to drive around town with those magnets on your car, letting everybody know that you underwrote yesterday's speech without any objection having been made from the organization as to the content of the speech. It was an inappropriate speech, and I know that everyone on the Boy Scouts of America boards and on the local councils knows that that's the case, and it ought to be said. People need to say as much and do something about it. You can't fire the president and you can't undo the speech, but really, honestly, it violates every sort of Boy Scout policy that I can think of. Certainly, if anybody saw yesterday, me and a number of others reciting all of the elements of the Boy Scout law, you would know that, Trump doesn't live up to any single part of it. He may possibly be clean, in the physical sense. That's questionable. He's a germaphobe, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on in that hair. So I might be willing to give him, the benefit of the doubt on clean, but, right off the bat, trustworthy? Okay. We know where this is going. And the rest of the oath, of course, or law rather, I believe. I was never a scout myself, so I'm on a par with Trump on that one. But I will tell you, I'm disappointed mostly because I never was involved in scouting myself, and I had my doubts, to be honest, about the kids joining scouts. But then, it seemed like an innocent thing at the Cub Scout level when their friends in school invited them to come and join through their packs. And I thought, it's relatively harmless. And thank you. A thumbs up from Fripp. Are you still going by Fripp on the radio? I'm just wondering about that, where we stand on going with IDs on the air these days. But giving a thumbs up that now things are coming across much cleaner. So I guess we've adjusted the issue as between Justice at the dials, my own little dial here on my microphone, and physically backing away. Anyway, I was saying about the kids joining the Scouts. It really was a matter of local friends who invited them to join, and neither of the kids, by the way, joined the packs at their local school, at their own elementary school. They joined the packs based out of elementary schools nearby, having been invited by friends that they knew from elsewhere. I thought that was kind of interesting and weird, but I don't know, it made the connection between scouting and a community and a network of friends just sort of that much more meaningful. And also, I've been very much appreciative. I've been very appreciative of this scouting program, watching my kids go through it, particularly my older son, who's not that ordinarily not that outdoorsy a guy. I mean, he's a typical teenager now. He prefers his smartphone and computer and video games, and he's much more of an inside kind of guy. And scouting was the only thing that got him outside. His friends, some of whom were more outdoorsy, drew him out, and now he finds himself camping and going on the high adventure trips. He's canoeing, he's sailing, he's camping out, he's hiking, he's biking, he's doing all of the things that you're supposed to be doing as a active young kid, and it's honestly because of the scouts. They're the ones doing, and they're giving him experiences that I couldn't give him on my own. I can't drag him out the door and get him interested and excited about it the way they can. And I can't provide the hiking, the rappelling, the camping supervision that they can, and I can't provide the experience that they can, the network of friends with whom he does this. It doesn't work like that when your old man drags you out. And so I've come away with a very newly positive view of the Scouts organization. When I was growing up, I don't know, there was certainly, I didn't know any Eagle Scouts growing up. I mean, I found out later on in college, like, somebody I know was an Eagle Scout, but it wasn't a major part of anyone's life. Certainly no one I knew in New Jersey, and scouting was like way uncool at that point. I wonder whether there was a measurable enrollment dip in the 80s. And whether kids just weren't participating. Maybe it's regional, I don't know. But I've been duly impressed by their program. And yeah, there was a period of tension and embarrassment as they wrestled with the issue of whether or not they could include, finally, eventually, gay scout leaders, gay scouts themselves, what to do with the issue, and I can understand why they, of course, had been badly burned in the past by, you can't lay that at the feet of anybody, of any orientation. There were people of all sorts taking advantage of scouts when that sort of thing happened, and I imagine it still does. Of course, it still does. We know intellectually that it does, but it was very troublesome, and trying to reconcile what the organization ought to be doing with the benefits I could see my kids deriving from it was difficult, and I was relieved to be able to see them reconcile this, at least partially, while they were in the scouting program. And I can't necessarily balance out the two of them, and I don't necessarily think that if they don't condemn the content of the president's speech at this point, that all bets are off and there's nothing to be gained from scouting. But it does, well, certainly, in the point of tweeting out the pictures of the Friends of Scouting magnets that are, little trinkets of thanks for donations each year in their Friends of Scouting fundraising drives. Will we add another one to the collection or not? This next year, when they come around with the envelopes and ask everybody to support the organization, there's going to be a big question mark. What kind of organization am I supporting? I'd be very disappointed if they couldn't find the backbone to say something about the impropriety, at least, of the speech. And they can apologize all they want for having invited the president. I don't think I would hold it against them. That's a mistake anybody could make, I think, on the board of the Boy Scouts of America. How bad could it be? You invite the president of the United States. He's gonna have some sense of propriety, right? Well, okay. I guess you could spin it that way and say, well, they were slow in coming around to realizing that he's got no sense of propriety. But again, could you forgive the Boy Scouts of America for giving even an idiot president like this one the benefit of the doubt? Okay, sure. There's lots of good that gets done here. It would really give me heartburn, let's say, to have to go into my Life Scouts run to Eagle if we were doing it under the auspices of an organization we now had serious questions about. And, of course, it would make it that much more difficult to pull out the checkbook. And we still have checkbooks here in real America or whatever. But it will, even if it's a metaphorical checkbook, it will be much more difficult to pull out the wallet when Friends of Scouting fund drives come around if Scouts are no friends of ours. We'll put it that way. And we'll set it aside from here and move on to other issues. I think I can extricate myself from that conversation at this point without getting in any more trouble. Okay, Armando raising a ruckus in the background. Let's see, is there something you'd like to join us about? We can try out the new updated Skype. By the way, all of this updating and new apps caused by Skype. Let's lay the blame where it belongs properly. Yesterday, I found out only after the show was over that Skype was not working properly, and I worried for a while that that was the reason that Greg wasn't with us, that he had tried to call and my Skype not working was the cause of my not getting the notice that he was waiting for me to answer, but apparently not the case. So Skype noticed me that it was out of date, needed to be updated, and I guess just basically that version was no longer going to function. I had to go and download the update. So, fine, I hate updating things. I went ahead, updated Skype. That took not too long. But, of course, the message then came back, oh, okay, well, now that you've updated Skype, I will inform you that the new updated Skype, I'm sure, will work perfectly. It just doesn't work with your now outdated operating system on your Mac. You need to download the latest OS in order to be able to run this latest Skype. And I knew that was going to be trouble. So, of course, updating your OS on a Mac is no small thing. I went ahead and did it, and let's see, I believe that took me about 3.5 hours to get updated to OS that they're now calling Sierra over on the Apple platform, at which point, of course, my Skype began to work, but it then dutifully informed me that my Wiretap application was no longer going to work. Wiretap is the name of the application that captures all of my system audio here and helps broadcast it out through Nicecast so that all you nice people can hear me broadcast it. See how the name came together? So now I was without the app that would have made the show possible, and we had to go and grab that. That no longer worked. Needed an entirely new replacement app, the next generation of the same company's new audio products. And as I said, that took me a while to get a hold of and then to be walked through the setup and then to have to kind of jump in blind and say, okay, all the buttons work. Things turn on. I just don't know how it's going to sound. It's been a hell of a morning. And we haven't even gotten to the healthcare stuff. Anyway, we can go ahead and move on to that if we, and by the way, invitation's open. Armando, he's going to try and see if he can get the Skype thing to work. And I'm a little disturbed. It worked for his call to Arliss Bunny last week, and it's not working for us, and so I guess I'm a little bit jealous. Skype, as Ricky the Kanakistani correctly recognizes, is a royal pain in the ass. But when it works fine. And it works free, and that's a good thing. I'm sure we could come up with another communication system, but this is the one that I know that works and that Greg knows that works, and learning too many apps at once can be a problem. Okay. Oh, look at this. It looks like it's coming up nice and clear. Very nice new updated graphics, letting me know that Armando is on the line. Good morning, Armando. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, David.
Oh, okay. Marvels of modern technology. Excellent. Let me tell you a story about a friend of mine who bought a yacht and had a bunch of orgies.
Surely was you, not me.
It may have been. Or it may be that your Skype also, did you update your app?
I did update, and that's when I couldn't call anymore.
Yeah, all right. I assume it's all rooted in the updates, and I'm glad we got it ironed out now. But, I wonder why people skip updates. It took me all day to get this right.
I know. I remember doing it both on my phone and my computer, and it was like, ugh. God.
Yeah. Well, you're supposed to do it regularly so that it's not such a pain in the neck and the one time that you catch up on 3-4 years of updates. But
yeah, this last
screw
one
that.
apparently was huge, though. I mean, everything changed.
It works now, so that's good. And you were asking questions in the background there about healthcare.
I thought that was an interesting article, and I frankly think,
let me take a look.
From my perspective, I'd love to hear the procedure discussion of the plan as described by Axios. Now, who knows if it's right, but they have access, ergo Axios.
That's
you
clever.
would think they would know. If you look at the last link I sent you,
okay.
They sort of describe what they say is McConnell's plan on the vote today.
All right.
I couldn't follow it. I was hoping you could
let's see.
Take it through with me and take questions from me as they describe it.
Okay. Let's see if I can figure it out here. See, I have a note on the side here. Scott Anderson weighing in that I guess on the output side, we need to boost your levels. I don't know if I can do that. I'm sure I can with all this fabulous new app makes everything possible, just to figure out how. And I'm hot and you're weak. I'm not certain whether he's not making any comments about our physical appearance. I don't think. Don't be harassing me, Scott. Jeez. What are you, the president of the United States? All right, exactly. We'll take a look here. The details of the Senate GOP plan are beginning to emerge, and it's a good thing too because they are having the vote today on the motion to proceed. By the way, before I begin, more important news. Blue Eyed in North Carolina says Armando sounds better than ever. So that's
there
good.
I go.
Still
I'm
some
hot,
distortion
right?
on my... Yeah, there you go. Now he's hot, and I am fried. We'll try that. Now I'm going to turn down the volume, the old-fashioned volume knob on my end here. So let's see. The motion to proceed starts today, and of course, I think everybody has pretty much gotten the picture that you're really talking about senators being asked, do you want to proceed to the debate on this bill, not knowing what is in the bill? They literally haven't committed it to paper at this point. And
my first question for you. How can you proceed to a bill under a reconciliation instruction if it hasn't been birdbath?
I don't really know. I mean, I guess you can. I mean, it's never. I've never seen it done this way, and this is a weird area. I have a lot of outstanding questions about this. It's always previously been the case that you had to do that so that you knew what you were doing going in, and you were going to be able to. You would be able to settle points of order in an orderly fashion. The parliamentarian had made known to the leadership what the rulings were going to be and why before you began.
At least for some of them.
Yeah.
But again, that was based on specific provisions. I've always thought that was kind of weird. I thought they would have to judge the bill in its entirety for germaneness. How can you tell something's germane if you don't know what the bill is?
I know that. I mean, I'm certain that they're submitting a lot of this material to the parliamentarian and possibly still to the CBO, and they've been doing it in a sort of modular way that, I'll give you bits and pieces as they are written, and you can evaluate them individually and how they integrate in the bill. And they'll certainly get something wrong, and I don't put it past them that they may be gaming that lag in certain ways and getting things past the CBO and or the parliamentarian by doing it piecemeal. But ordinarily, I'm sure that issues have come up. Points of order have been raised at the last minute during bill consideration in the past that the parliamentarian hadn't considered, and they just simply take an awfully long time to issue a ruling.
The reporting I saw on the birdbath was, like, for example, the Planned Parenthood ban was...
all of those things that have been proposed already in the past, They did put it through a birdbath, and it really did slice and dice the bill pretty badly.
I mean, there was some big pieces that supposedly require 60, i.e. one big one is EHB for Medicaid. EHB is essential health benefits. It's a critical part of the regulatory framework of the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah. And
yet she was up in the air on the essential health benefit waiver for states in the exchange, which I frankly found perplexing because I said isn't it basically the same thing? If it needs 60 for Medicaid, why doesn't it need 60 for state waivers? I was a little perplexed by that particular logic, But there's a whole bunch of pieces that were gutted, at least in the theory that this was going to proceed on a reconciliation vote. So what's the bill?
Even if there's going to be a lot of learning afterwards on this. I have been pursuing all weekend explanations as to why this was eligible for reconciliation in the first place, considering the very basic instructions required of the Senate in order to qualify for reconciliation haven't, in fact, been met. I don't know what the history of waiving these things is, because there's almost none. I explained yesterday.
Question 2 for you.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. I don't know where I'm going.
Question 2 for you. Can the Democrats just raise points of order before the motion to proceed and basically run out the clock today?
They, you know what? I don't know. We'll see how long it can last, but I would absolutely try. There's no reason why you couldn't simply raise point of order after point of order and lose them and just eat time. And quite honestly, I don't know how long, to be perfectly honest, I don't know how long John McCain feels like he can hang around during a working day.
I don't mean to be crass, but
I will be.
It was the back of my mind.
Yeah, well, I'll be perfectly crass. Hey, norms are out the window, right? We can say things like that now. That who cares about norms, right?
Exactly.
So, I don't know what kind of limitations there are on his working day. In fact, I'm surprised that he found a doctor who was willing to let him fly in the first place. But okay, fine. I won't question their medical judgment. They do this all the time, so whatever. But yeah, they could certainly raise a bunch of points. Now, on the motion to proceed, they might not be germane points necessarily, but certainly there'll be a lot of questions about, should we even be proceeding if the CBO hasn't really scored this, or, is this a different version? Is this significantly different from what you showed them last week? I know that the parliamentarian has issued all sorts of warnings about what will be subject to a point of order if we were to consider it as part of the bill. Is it part of the bill? Do we need to know? Do we need to be making points of order? Are there other things that haven't been reviewed? And if so, what are you even doing here with them? They could dismiss all of these points of order or vote to table all these points of order, but it still takes considerable amount of time to debate and table those things. And if there's an endless march of them.
Well, my first point of order,
I don't
know if anybody agrees with me, is I can't actually tell you what points of order are in order because you never gave me the bill.
Yeah.
What
that's
are we
problematic.
proceeding on?
No, senators don't know that. And there's some question about when they'll find out, too. The operating theory that I think I'm going to endorse is one that's under normal circumstances. By the time you make the motion to proceed, there has to be something written so that everybody at least knows what they're proceeding on at the moment they're being asked to cast that vote. Now, that might not be what finally gets voted on for final passage, but that's never the case because then everything can be amended. Then it opens up.
I get that, but at least on the motion to proceed, I should have an idea of what I'm proceeding with.
Yeah, and I do think that they're supposed to produce that. The only question is, what does it mean? Like, if, for instance, if I have a bill that I really intend to introduce as a complete substitute, as an amendment at the end of the process, when do I have to produce that? Can I come to the floor, in other words, with the Affordable Care Act itself? To which no one can object.
And it passed the bird bath.
And so here's the
Affordable Care Act with a change in a comma.
Yeah, well, the Affordable Care Act, I suppose, the original Affordable Care Act wouldn't pass the bird bath, but the reconciliation sidecar certainly would, or presumably, unless
you're right.
For some reason, but you could come to the floor with something that's entirely bird rule compliant. And to which, on the question of substance, no Democrat anyway would have any objection, and no Republican would object because wink, wink, we know what we're doing here. and then get that to the floor and then say, all right, well, we'll have 20 hours of debate, and now the 20 hours is up. We go through the vote-a-rama for anybody who's still got any amendments outstanding. And if finally, when no one else has anything to say, Mitch McConnell says, well, I got one more. It's in fact the text of the bill that I really intended to pass the whole time. Here it is, and I have lined my ducks up just fine here, and we got 50 votes plus one to get us over the top if we have a full Senate here. And guess what? This is maybe the first time you're going to see it, but here it is. And we have a minute to debate it.
It's execrable and sleazy, but it seems to me that would be procedurally sound, right?
Yeah, at a minimum. And procedurally, yes. I mean, again, the norms would be out the window. And you could raise all sorts of points of order against it, but I don't know which one, if any, would, I suppose it's possible. It's very difficult to work out exactly what the limitations are. There are rules about how much notice, how much time before the vote on an amendment, you have to have it printed and available for review, and each chamber has its own rules about that, and I don't know if there are special rules about it with regard to reconciliation. But again, looming in the background is the ability, if you can, raise a majority to just basically blow past the rules. Another subject of great debate over the weekend.
Filibuster, and that'll be that.
Yeah, well, the filibuster won't have anything to do with this one, but they can certainly table any point of order that they want to, and argue that tabling the point of order means that they can go ahead, or they get the presiding officer. One of two things: they can issue the ruling as dictated to them by the parliamentarian and simply appeal the ruling of the chair and overturn it. Or they can just outright have the chair say, yeah, I know what you're trying to tell me, parliamentarian, but I'm saying the opposite, and then sustain that point of order when, or sustain the ruling when a point of order is raised against the ruling by a Democrat. They can engineer it either way, and I don't know really what, if anything, could be done about it. You've raised the point in the past that it might be more difficult to get away with in the end because the rules under which they're operating here are, at least nominally, statutory rather than just procedural rules of the Senate, since you're operating under rules laid out in the Budget Act. But some of them are directly from out of the Budget Act, like the Byrd Rule, but others, like questions of order and proceeding and tabling of motions and tabling of points of order, are in fact just procedural rules. And I guess, who wants to hand the Gorsuch court that question?
Not me, but yes. Again, at least they still have to go to court, or we get to go.
Yeah,
to court.
I mean, it's an opportunity.
Fight.
Yeah, I mean, don't pass it up.
If I may, and I'm not telling you how to run your show.
I don't know how to run it.
Basically hijacked it. But if you look at this Axios article that I
yes,
linked
okay,
to you,
I'm looking.
Did you see if what they're saying there makes sense to you as a procedural matter?
All right, well, let's see. We'll read through it.
Talk your way and read your way through it.
All right. Well, let's see. You stop me if we get to a point here that you wanted to reinforce. I'll start up at the top. The details of the Senate GOP plan are beginning to emerge, although everyone is still pretty confused. But the gist is that if Republicans have the 50 votes necessary to get on the bill, that is to pass the motion to proceed to the bill, they'll vote on both the replacement plan they've been working on and their partial repeal plan, both of which are expected to fail, and then have to trust McConnell for whatever comes next. Interesting. The plan, according to two senior GOP Senate aides, 1, take the vote on the motion to proceed, which would begin debate on the House-passed bill. It's unclear whether this has 50 votes. If it doesn't, this is where the plan ends.
Okay, so that's the original BCRA, Trump Care.
Yes.
That a number of senators said was unacceptable.
Yes.
When it came out of the gate.
But who knows where they are now.
Right.
Okay, and number 2.
But in theory, there is 15 no votes on that. Supposedly.
Okay.
They'll vote on motion to proceed and trust that McConnell will amend it to their liking.
Yes, that's the issue. Do they believe that they will get something other than the House-passed bill handed to them for debate and a vote? And they do, basically. Right now, as things stand, I think there's still 2 Republicans who say they either don't believe that or don't care what the answer is. They still won't vote yes on a motion to proceed.
We believe those 2 are Collins and Murkowski.
Well, yeah, the 2 that they've been holding out over the last couple of days are Collins, who I believe, and Rand Paul, who I don't, because I
do not believe.
Yeah,
but I heard Murkowski.
Murkowski is a likely, the next most likely to end up at no, but for whatever reason, for the past couple of days, she's been unwilling to say, and I believe that the reason she's been unwilling to say is that McConnell said, "Look, you can be a no, just don't say you're a no now." All I'm asking, do what you want. I can't force your hand, but for the next couple of days until I get this thing on the floor, say you're undecided. Then do what you're going to do on the motion to proceed. I mean, if you do what you say you're going to do, I'll kill you, but do it. Don't say so now. Oh, and I think that's largely what it is.
In terms of Rand Paul, I'll explain to you. He wanted to vote on just clean repeal.
Yeah.
With no replace. And my understanding is McConnell has bought him off by saying that if you vote to proceed, we will vote on your amendment for just repeal, which will go down. And then Rand Paul can say,
I tried.
Principled and move on with gutting healthcare in the United States.
That's a pretty common offer, a common deal, and very likely to be the case. And that's probably what McConnell has spent the last couple of days on, is what would it take to get you to yes on the motion to proceed? And very often it's, I want a symbolic vote on my amendment. I don't care what happens to it. But if I get that vote, I'm a yes on the motion to proceed. So, the big danger is...
Rand Paul is, no one even believes him or cares. It's kind of funny because I thought his little shtick really failed this time. No one really paid attention to him, why was he doing it? To get attention. Yeah. And no one gave it too much attention, said, yeah, right. Okay, Rand, shut up.
So, pretty much.
So the possible Murkowski would be the second no vote. If there's going to be a second no vote, it's going to be Murkowski. And that gets you to 50. 50-50. Before McCain came back, that would have lost. Because with 50 no's, there only would have been 49 yays, and the motion to proceed would have failed. Now, with McCain back, it would be 50-50, and Pence would break the tie.
Yes. That's the thinking. Of course, everyone pointing out, boy, John McCain has never had less to lose by standing on principle, but whatever. I mean, that's all true, but so what?
So what? I mean, he's a phony. He's always been a phony. I don't want the man to die of cancer, but this deification of John McCain is the most ridiculous thing of the last 17 years in politics.
Well, the fact that you said that is good news.
Or was just before he got brain cancer, or was diagnosed with getting brain cancer, he said, let's return everything to regular order.
Yeah.
And he could do it today if he really believes in regular order.
Yeah.
John McCain could make that happen today.
He
by
could.
Voting no on the motion to proceed.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way to get to validate your insistence on regular order by voting yes on this motion to proceed. There's been no hearings, nothing, no open debate, no open amendment process. The only people and it's interesting though, the number of people who have gotten to yes on the motion to proceed on this have gotten to yes by being offered their amendments as a deal cut outside the regular order. So if, to the extent that anybody has been saying, I want regular order, and then comes to yes on the motion to proceed because I got a vote on my amendment, well, how did you get that? Not in the committee proceedings, not through an open negotiation. And that's very often the case, but you usually have the window dressing of the regular committee order to point to. and say, well, at least that was done correctly. Very often in the Senate, agreements like that at the last minute for offering amendments is done privately and outside of the regular procedure, but at least something's been done by regular procedure.
Yeah, but I want to stress this point, and maybe it's just a bug up my butt, but John McCain has in his hands today the power to force regular order on this bill.
Yes. As does Mike Lee, as does Barrasso, as does Sass. Sure.
But everybody thinks they're a bunch of slimes, and they never believe them anyway. But John McCain is the principled man of the Senate.
Whatever. I guess anything can happen.
That's just my point. There can be no bigger exposure of the phoniness of the McCain cult than today. Yeah. He could be for full repeal. He can be for anything. But he's certainly not for the traditions and the norms of the Senate.
No. And it's legacy time.
So never say that to us again.
Well, I hope we can get rid of that. But I mean, I hope that's at least the upshot of it. Like I said, it's legacy time. It's sad to have to finally lay that on the line by saying, well, you've essentially terminal brain cancer. That means it's legacy time. What are you going to do? What do you want us to write on your headstone? He did what was expected of him. All right. Fine. I mean, it's a life of service, right? Sure. It's just not a great one. It's okay. It's not a problem.
Yeah, no, he's the hack we always said he was. Enough with this maverick and
you get to keep your medals. I'm not going to strip you of your medals. It's
yada bullshit.
Right. Straight Talk Express. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, whatever. That's been sidelined. So where were we on the plan here? The motion to proceed is first. If that somehow doesn't get a majority, that's the end of it for today. And again, it may still be zombified after today. They can always come back. There's nothing that says that they can't.
And that just another John McCain point in that. Why couldn't they just hold the bill for a week until John McCain come back?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that there's some strategic thinking about the timing, or they want to move on to something, and it could be indicative of possibly of McConnell's belief that, this is going to go down. I just want to let's get it over with already. I mean, why hang on? I'd like to move on to a different bill. And if it passes, great. But I mean, if not, let's just please, let's clear the decks. We got 2 or 3 more things we want to do. We can have that August recess, or I can decide you're coming back for the first 2 weeks of August, or come back early the last 2 weeks of August and try the healthcare bill again. But I got to know what's happening for August, and there's too much to leave undone, which is largely what will happen with most of these things. But it may just be a scheduling issue for him.
All right,
I feel like it has to happen.
He just wants it to happen today. Okay, so the motion to proceed somehow on the House bill, there's 50 votes for that. Pence breaks the tiebreaker.
Yes.
They proceed to debate.
Right. So on point 2 here, if the motion to proceed passes, vote on the Better Care Reconciliation Act, the leading replacement plan. Here is where things get murky, says Axios. Senator Rob Portman has struck a deal that would add $100 billion to the bill's stabilization fund. It would pair with Senator Cruz's Consumer Freedom Amendment.
What does that mean, pair?
Let me see. I don't know whether it means, obviously, I'll read through the paragraph and see if that becomes clearer, which allows insurers selling ACA compliant plans to also sell non-compliant plans, but a vote on that agreement would be subject to a 60-vote threshold because it hasn't been analyzed by the Congressional Budget Office. That means it'll fail. Okay, but to pair with it, I wonder if they've combined them into a single amendment, or whether it may be that, and it may be the upshot of it. I don't know if they've formally combined them, but sometimes you can offer amendments en bloc, in which you just take 2 or more pending amendments and say one vote on the package as follows. The following amendments offered as amendments en bloc. And it might be that those are the kinds of deals that they end up striking because at the last minute as you're trying to get to the motion to proceed, and the majority leader is trying to count his votes, and you have, at that point, if any one vote can undo things, that means you're going to have anywhere from 50 to 100 senators saying, well, I'll vote for a motion to proceed if you allow a vote on my amendment. And, you say, well, but your amendment is doomed. You know that you can't get it. You'd never get to 50 on your amendment. And even if you could, it wouldn't matter because nobody has scored your amendment at the CBO. And that means it's subject to a point of order that'll take 60 votes to waive. And
all right, so they
may say, sure, that's fine.
The thing what they're saying, they're going to take Portman's deal here,
yes,
compare it to Cruz,
yes,
and kill them both at this point. But so
yeah.
What? Does that mean Portman's deal gets put in somewhere else? I guess so.
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that it's all for naught. That Portman says, I need to be seen attempting to add $100 billion to the bill. McConnell says, there's no way that's going to work. We never scored it. I mean, I don't know how do you have to score that? It's going to cost $100 billion. There you go.
What's the score?
Right.
It costs $100 billion more.
Yeah. I don't know.
Not a tough score.
I'm sure there's nuance to it and all, but, again, it may just be Portman saying, this bill is a disaster. The only way I survive the passage of this thing is if I'm seen attempting to add $100 billion to the stabilization fund. But I know it won't work. So good. I'm glad you know, Rob, that it won't work. Can I save time on the floor, please, then, by killing it at the same time as the other amendment that won't work, Cruz's amendment? Yes. Okay, great.
All right. So let's say that's the deal. Then they goes. All right. Then what?
All right. So let's see. Step 3 here. Then would come the vote on an updated version of the 2015 straight repeal bill.
That's Rand Paul's deal.
Yeah, that's the one that passed back in 2015 when they knew it would be vetoed, and it did, so it was a free repeal vote and made them all look like tough guys. And since they passed it in 2015, people like Rand Paul have said, well, we ought to have the guts to do it again. But of course, It won't pass again, and so you don't have guts, but all right. So now they give the opportunity to do that. Too. Yeah, this is because it's a possibility. This is also expected to fail. The way leadership is structuring the vote procedurally, this would technically be the first amendment voted on, likely as a nod to Senator Rand Paul, even though BCRA would be on the table first. So you'd be voting on the motion to proceed to the BCRA, approve the motion to proceed, maybe. If not, nothing else matters. Having adopted the motion to proceed, they would then say, okay, now we're proceeding. The bill under consideration is the House passed BCRA, and we have an amendment being offered to the BCRA, and it is the 2015 straight repeal bill being offered at the behest of Senator Paul. That fails, and then moving on, say, okay, we're still considering the BCRA, and the next amendment will be, and I don't know whether that's Portman, Cruz, or some other one, but then the amendment process continues apace. And Rand Paul says, I stood on principle. I had my repeal-only vote. I showed everybody my backbone. What I decide to do on the rest of this stuff, I don't know, but I got my moment in the sun. Kentucky news stations will have satellite video available to them of me standing there talking during an important-looking proceeding. That's what I'm interested in.
All
right. So number 4, if votes on the 2015 bill and the BCRA both fail, all votes are to amend the House bill. I don't really see where they wouldn't be really having a vote on the BCRA alone at this point. But I could see where they have the vote on the 2015 bill. But if a vote on the BCRA fails, what would that even mean? You'd only be having a vote on that. The only vote on the BCRA is if that's all that remains at the end of the amendment process. Or if they're talking about
I think that's, that didn't make sense to me.
All votes then would be to amend the House bill. It's unclear what these votes will be because no one has revealed what their amendments are, but Democrats are sure to make the Republicans take some painful ones. Democrats, by the way, this is where we we had been asking, and I think they were responding positively early on, when the plan was just, let's see if we can delay this until after the July 4th recess. Now that they've done that, I don't know whether there's any further plans to come to the floor with a flood of thousands of amendments. I think they're just not going to do it.
I think it's a great plan. Again, to be crass.
Yeah.
John McCain, how long can he stand there?
Yeah. I mean, he's going to have to go for a follow-up visit at some point. And at that point, when he says, I can't take it anymore, I got to go to the doctor, you say, yeah, I'm done amending the bill. Let's have that vote.
Yeah.
I don't see why not. They would do it. They have done it. We've all
certainly
done
the Republicans did it with Robert Byrd. So.
And they took full advantage of Ted Kennedy's absence as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. No one knows what the final vote will be because we don't have a product that 50 senators agree to. One of the aides said.
This is what's crazy about this. What's the end game here?
I don't know. No one will see a final product before the vote on the motion to proceed tomorrow. That would be now today. Unless something is being drafted overnight, the aide said, which, why bother? This is a leap of faith in Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. We have no idea what the final product will be. And quite honestly, even if they produced something this morning, you still have no idea what the final product will be. There's still the opportunity for Mitch McConnell to say, hey, I just thought of an idea. 20 hours after we begin debate on the House bill, if the motion to proceed passes, he can, it can be 25, 26, 27 hours after we start if there's lots of amendments to be considered. As long as we're still debating the bill, at some point there are usually rules about at what time, by what time do you have to submit an amendment to the desk in order for it to be put in the queue for a vote-orama at the end of one of these time-limited bills. And it's often an hour before debate begins, or sometimes an hour after, or depending on what kind of amendment it is. If it's a first-degree amendment, second-degree amendment, there's usually time limits. And on the other hand, there's also the ability to vote to waive those time limits at the end.
Yeah,
this would ordinarily violate the rules.
There are no rules.
Yeah.
I think we have to proceed under the idea that there really are no rules.
You may very well see some, maybe on something major, maybe on something minor, but I would say the odds are pretty good that somewhere along the line, if things begin to break down, and McConnell can be said to care about the passage of anything about having to do with this bill, and he may have just thrown up his hands and said, I don't care what happens. But to the extent that he cares, that's an increase in the odds that you'll see a vote somewhere to undo some portion of our procedural norms, either permanently or temporarily.
By the way, I saw on Twitter, I guess an hour ago, that Rand Paul's grandstanding again, pretending he's a no on the motion to proceed.
Okay.
I don't believe him, but maybe he is. Who knows? Sometimes he grandstands to that point, and
yeah, it's always a possibility. I mean,
I just think Trump, he doesn't want to get yelled at by Trump. I think the one thing that I've seen about Rand Paul is he's kind of afraid of Trump. So that always makes me think he's going to cave.
Yeah, that would mean a yes.
Susan Collins has proven she's not. Murkowski, I think, pretty much doesn't care about Trump.
Okay. Anybody that's worried about Trump is going to be a yes.
McCain shouldn't care. McCain should hate him. McCain should revel in torpedoing Trump. But,
But we'll see. So all right.
Okay, but before you go on, one of the things that I think is interesting about this, and I'm actually opened up the article again that you're going through. If you look at that bullet point, the first bullet point in number 5, this whole leap of faith with McConnell.
Yes.
In the past, we've always thought as the motion to proceed as, basically the key vote, because if you get past the motion to proceed, usually 95, 98, 99% of the time, a bill is going to get passed.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you bring bills that you know are going to pass.
Because usually you know what's in the bill before you go to the motion to proceed.
Yes, and you have a whip count because they know what's in the bill. I mean, you can still make a whip count, but... I mean,
this is sort of uncharted, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
Where the motion to proceed really isn't the break point, the point where, if you get past it, that means there's a general agreement on a bill. They're working to hash out this or this point or that little point. but there's 50 votes or 51 votes or whatever the threshold is for the bill that we're gonna pass something. But here there's like, okay, we've agreed on something, but you haven't agreed on anything.
Right.
I mean, isn't this different than your typical motion to proceed and people should change their mindset? Neera Tanda yelled at me about this last night on Twitter. And she was right. Said, the motion to proceed at this point is nothing. You can fight this bill to the end because there's no bill. Don't think of this as the last stand, the motion to proceed. And I think, she would agree that we need to fight as much as possible. But the real last stand is the final bill.
Yes. The best chance, I guess maybe you could use that term, the last best chance is defeating the motion to proceed. But it's not the last chance. There's also worse chances to come. But yeah, they are there. You could still come out with a product that is so bad that you can convince enough Republicans to defect. The problem with any reconciliation bill is your time is limited, and 20 hours of debate plus whatever's left at the end with Vote-A-Rama, 20, 24, 25, 27 hours is not often enough to convince enough people to call their senators' offices and pressure them to vote no. I mean, typically that takes about a week to get that kind of pressure mounted, but we've been on a kick for quite a while here, so it might work. And of course, just the fact that it usually doesn't work doesn't mean you say, all right, everybody roll over. The motion to proceed is passed. Yeah.
You fight.
You're absolutely right.
I still think this is different, though, David, because again, the motion to proceed is usually the choke point.
Yes.
And here there's no bill to choke. We don't know what's in it. And there's such a tension between the demands of the, the Freedom Caucus of the Senate, whoever that may be, and Collins, who has been, maybe because she wants to be governor of Maine, has been pretty firm. Heller has made noises that are going to be difficult for him to walk back. And the reality of the bill is incredibly 35% cuts to Medicaid.
Yes, and that comes under any package.
Incredibly disastrous.
Right. There's no version of the bill and no amendments, I don't think, being offered. Maybe a Democrat would offer an amendment to that effect, but no Republican amendments being offered that change the 35% cuts, no matter what version of the bill comes out of the other end. Because it's central. That's what the bill is. So that's not.
I don't know. I mean, it just seems, you're on a razor's edge. One vote, it is going to be 50-50 if it passes, because someone's going to take an opportunity to not be for this, be it Dean Heller or someone else. I mean, they're only going to take a yes vote if they feel like they have to. A no vote is always, I think somebody said, you can always explain a no vote.
You may see them rotating too.
Hard.
Yeah. The people on the bubble you might see rotate. Well, I'll vote. You and you vote no on the motion to proceed. We can't have more than that. Then we'll have the straight repeal vote. Then it'll be my turn to vote no on repeal, no replace, and you too. And we can all do it, but it can't. That can't pass. So, any number of us can do it, but I guess, for appearance's sake, we should try to limit it to 5 or 6 of us. Then, over here we'll have this vote on the, Portman-Cruz amendment, and it's going to take 60. That's a free-for-all. We all get to have no votes on that one. Let's see. Over here we got one that's going to be, 50 vote threshold. You will already have voted no so that you're safe in your state. I need a no on this one. Thank you. Okay, and they just parcel it out that way. And there will always be just enough yes votes to pass what needs to be passed, and the no votes get parceled out. And in the end, 6 or 7 senators get to say, I stood up against the Trump juggernaut on votes 1,
really
4, and 11.
PR strategy? I mean, I'm sure that's what McConnell will tell them. Hey, that'll work. Don't worry.
Yeah,
At
works.
the end of the day, when you're one of the votes that made it happen.
Yeah. You'll be attacked,
it's
no
be hard
doubt.
to argue that.
But right. But if at the end remember what gets disseminated here is an ad at the end that says Senator Rob Portman voted only less than 50% of the time with the Trump agenda. If that's what you need to say on healthcare.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. That making him one of the most independent-minded senators. Asterisk. This was printed by an anonymous source in roll call, said this, whatever. But that's the ad. I just, I'm one of the most independent. I only voted with Trump this % of the time. And it gets obfuscated that way.
Yeah,
so,
I guess the other thing is, and this is where the Democrats can really muck up the works in terms, not just procedurally, but I think in the substance of the bill. If you can frame some amendments that are impossible to vote against. I mean, the pre-existing condition issue has been pretty potent. And if you come up with an amendment that states it in fairly unexceptionable terms, what happens is, Cruz goes. There's just this contraption as an end result doesn't work very well because you're going to have, let's say you keep essential health benefits and you keep the ban on discrimination against pre-existing conditions. The math on the bill doesn't work out. The premiums on the bill on the policies will be huge if you don't have a mandate. And you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is actually hard policy stuff. It's not really that amenable to horse trading in the traditional give me X money for infrastructure sense that political horse trading in the Congress usually works. The moving parts really have to fit for this to make sense. And then here's my final thought on this, and I'll be quiet, I promise, for 5 minutes straight. When does all this go back for a CBO score?
I don't know. Not at any point that matters.
Gets me. We're in reconciliation. How can the final version of the bill not be scored?
That's I don't really know what exactly happens. I don't think I've seen it work exactly like this. I mean, I've seen things happen that must change the score at some point. And they do mention, of course, on issues that are known to have major impacts on the score, but which the provisions haven't been scored for, then under the normal rules, those votes would require 60 at some point. Yes.
Well, that's actually my point. That would be my final point of order. A lot of this hasn't been scored. The entire bill needs to be scored. It requires 60 votes.
Yeah.
Okay, they overrule the chair, blah, blah, blah. But at least I've got a legal argument in court seeking an injunction to stop this bill but of course, it's not right.
I don't know that I've seen what they do, and offhand I can't recall a similar situation coming up. But I suppose, if I were engineering this myself, I guess I would say if you've passed enough, if say for instance, you have an unscored provision and you somehow get 60 votes to include it, and then there's some question at the end, and somebody raises a point of order and says, before we take the final vote on passage here, I don't know that this is reconciliation compliant anymore, so how many votes would it take to pass this thing? And you might be able to make a point of order that if sustained and this is a great way to engineer a final vote, right? Say somebody makes the objection. So we've added so many things here that there must be a change in the score, and I don't know that this is any longer reconciliation compliant, so I make the point of order that it would require 60 votes to pass this thing, period. And they could then say, the presiding officer could say, yeah, that's the way the rules normally work, at which point Mitch McConnell would say, well, I move to table the point of order, at which point presumably then Democrats say, well, okay, but it should take 60 votes to table a point of order that takes 60 votes to waive. Yeah, it should, but today it won't. And let's vote on whether or not that's the correct ruling. Oh, look, 50 people voted yes. And here's the vice president. There's 51. I mean, you could try and engineer things to set the normal rules aside. If you can get it around to where you're voting on something 2 or 3 levels removed from something that there's a rule or even statutory language on. This requires 60 votes. Well, that's your interpretation of the rules. I'm not questioning the rule. I'm questioning your interpretation. And traditionally, we have decided questions of interpretation by majority vote. So what do you say? Oh,
sure.
That's a good question.
And that was the discrete question on the filibuster with regard to lower court nominations. And then earlier this year on the Supreme Court nomination.
Yes.
And that's fairly straightforward. They knew what they were doing. And basically now for executive and judicial nominations, there is no filibuster.
Right.
It's still in the books. I understand the rule's still there, but those precedents, as you've explained ably in the past, are basically established that there is no filibuster for those. But
yes.
but for the reconciliation on the legislative side, there's 2 points. First of all, we still recognize that if it's not reconciliation, it takes 60 votes. And in reconciliation, it has to comply with the Budget Act, which is why you say, all right, majority rules, but not this time. A court, in theory, gets to pass on this.
They may.
Okay.
And they
good
could...
luck to me winning that case. I understand.
Right. And they could opt, I mean, I guess, I've never seen it done, but I suppose they could, if they were really interested in being honest about it, they could, at the end of the proceedings of the day, say, yes, this absolutely will need to be rescored to make sure that it's still reconciliation compliant. I move that we adjourn at this point and hand it back to the CBO, and if the CBO comes back with a yes, we'll reconvene and vote. It may be next week, it may be next month, or if they come back and say no, we'll try and come back for a waiver vote or continued consideration of the bill. If anybody has any amendments that they can offer and argue for in 1 minute or less, that will make it reconciliation compliant again, go for it. Otherwise, we'll be back here.
1 minute or less.
Right, well, that's what will happen at the end.
That's what you would do if there was a, good faith engagement here. Obviously, that's not what we're talking about.
No. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess, at the end, at the very end, if they really absolutely must have passage of something, might will make right, at least temporarily, and then a bill will purported to have been passed, enrolled and are engrossed and enrolled and sent to the president, whose pen is in hand, as it happens, and he'll sign it, and then we'll have a big contest in the courts.
His pen is in hand.
That's what he says. So, and then we get to see whether I might as well just call it the Gorsuch Court cares eventually. And it may delay implementation of the law for a little while, and that may be a good thing. I'd say battle it to the last, but I'd be very interested to know what they think they can do with this thing.
Oh, they'll call it a political question and leave it to the
maybe.
I think that's the obvious out for the Gorsuch Court. I do think it's worth noting. Listen, the Senate has always been sort of a phony institution in a lot of ways. But it did have the senators each as individuals guarded their prerogatives and defended their rights. And they couched it in terms of institutional concerns.
Yes.
But at this point, if this happens, and it happens this way, that's it. I mean, I can't imagine anyone really caring about any norm, any rule, anything in the Senate. It's just the House now, and maybe that's not a bad thing. But we can stop pretending at this point. I mean, the next time you come back, I was in a fit of rage last night. I said, you know what? No more negotiation. If we ever get back the Senate and we get the House and we get the presidency, I don't want a single negotiation with a single Republican. Mm-hmm. Just ram everything through 50 votes, vice president breaks every tie, no committee hearings, screw you, and we're enacting the socialist tyranny that they've always accused us of.
All right. I mean, why not? It would be the inclination, certainly, and then they would say, "See, we were right about you. You're right. You were right about me." How interesting.
Too bad they were right about us when we had the 60 votes.
Yeah.
And everything.
They were wrong then. Whoops. But so were we. So, this is, it's going to be interesting. Some norm somewhere will be broken. And I guess we'll say this. If, just like you say, if they get a yes vote on the motion to proceed out of McCain, by all rights, I mean, it won't happen, but by all rights, it should be the end of the maverick myth. And
the institutional defender.
Yes.
The man of principle.
Well, likewise, same for Mitch McConnell, because if this goes through and this works, can we please have an end to he's an institutionalist. He's got deep respect for the
Master
institution.
Of the
yeah, right.
The procedure of counting to 50.
Yeah. So I understand he was able to engineer all of this, but to say that he's defending or conservatively defending the prerogatives of the Senate and he's part of my weekend debate about whether or not these rules tweaks and precedent tweaks can actually happen or have happened in the past. We actually still have people debating whether or not that really happened, and people who are still insistent that, oh yeah, Harry Reid was the first one to ever change the rules on the filibuster. Okay.
That's funny.
Whatever. And, but yeah, that was part of the debate, but also, in all of this, it's like, well, McConnell won't do this because he's got such a deep, abiding respect for the institution. I'm like, he says that's his PR line. That's his, I'm the superhero who defends the institution. And I'm sure he says the Constitution too. It's all baloney. He does whatever he needs to do, and usually for the past couple of years, while he's been in the minority, who defends the institution? The minority leader. He's constantly claiming to be defending the institution. That's the role, because ordinarily the institution is looking to roll over you because you're the minority, and to the extent that you're able to hobble the majority from working its will, you have defended minority rights, and that's the institution. And now when you become the majority leader, you don't give a crap anymore. That's the way it goes, and you should stop pretending that it's any different. There are people who carry that tradition over, and they get yelled at by the rank and file of their party. What are you doing? Why are you doing? Pat Leahy, what are you doing reinstating the 2 blue slip rule after Orrin Hatch got rid of it to our great disadvantage? Oh, well, I'm an institutionalist. He's an institutionalist. We can't stand it, but he's an institutionalist.
Speaking of the phony institutionalists, Lindsey Graham just tweets now, President Trump's tweet suggesting Attorney General Sessions pursue prosecution of a former political rival is, and I quote, highly inappropriate. Highly inappropriate.
It is.
Oh, well.
Why didn't you say so? Oh, I strongly...
Thank you for identifying highly inappropriate.
We strongly object.
Yeah, we strongly object. Now, actually, relevant to the bill, he said something that I can't make sense of, but this is from Burgess Everett 5 minutes ago, said, Graham says he, quote, won't vote for scaled-back bill. No quote, sorry. He won't vote for scaled-back bill intended to kick repeal to conference with House. Political punt. What does that mean?
Graham says he won't vote for scaled-back bill intended to kick repeal. Okay. Well, I'd have to read the story, but that could mean one of two things. I assume what he's saying is, wow, I don't know. I'd have to read this. It could mean that he's for the BCRA as written and will support no amendments.
No, he's not for that, I don't believe. But listen, take a minute to read it, and I'll give some completely uninformed thoughts while you take 2 minutes to just skim through it to see if you can make heads or tail. Because it actually could be an important development.
Yes. Speaking of important developments, by the way, I'm going to scroll back here, but I did just see in passing that Manafort has been subpoenaed by the Senate Judiciary Committee, is it?
Yeah, I did not want
Okay.
to take you off track there.
Well,
By
we'll
putting that
put it
one. I
on the
thought this
record
was
and go
semi-relevant
find
to
it
the
later.
Healthcare debate.
Yes. Okay. But
But
continuing on here, I'll look at this bill or this piece.
I guess he was saying he's not going to vote for a blank piece of paper to send to conference is what I thought he sort of meant.
Yeah.
In the larger picture, he said, I'm not going to let it go to conference without some idea of what we are fighting for.
Oh, that could be. Let's see.
That's sort of how I took it, but if you read it differently, I'd be curious to say. It could be
Where's
that the reporters
Graham?
just don't understand what he meant. We'll see.
Graham's in at the bottom. Okay, let's see. Administration officials and senators are discussing adding as much as $100 billion more to earlier drafts. That would be Portman's idea. While senators may also consider a scaled-back version of Obamacare repeal that would allow them to at least pass something in the Senate and get to conference, Republicans said. There we are. Yeah, you're right. I don't know if they've got 50, but I know I'm not going to vote for something that's a scaled-down version. That's a political punt. That has to be done, I think, through regular order. All right, but I can't tell whether he's going to help or
regular
not.
order, man, again. So there's an
Yes.
easy way to get to regular order, Senator Graham.
True.
You and your friend John McCain can vote no on the motion to proceed and send it back to the committees.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I don't see how you could possibly think things have been done by regular order if you're concerned that conference is outside of the regular order. Conference is regular order. But I mean, I understand what he means. It can be a free-for-all. If you just send back something that's, if you send something that's radically different back to the House and you go to conference, then, anything can happen. If you send something that's slightly different, again, under ordinary rules, you're not supposed to go outside of the areas of disagreement in coming up with a settlement conference bill, but people do that all the time also. But, I can't really tell what Graham will do based on what he said. I see what he's upset about, but I don't know if this tells us anything about how to predict how he votes on final passage. How scaled down is scaled down. I mean, it could be anything.
Words. And frankly, once you get past the motion to proceed, this doesn't go back to regular order. I would assume McConnell ditches it and you're done.
Maybe. I mean, he might not pull that surprise, and which would, I guess, that could give them an excuse to say, yeah, this bill went through regular order after the motion to proceed anyway. I mean, everything up to that point wasn't, but after that, we all wore suits and talked about it on the floor and cast votes, so that's pretty regular.
It's just remarkable that I was just thinking back in 2009, I believe there were 3 Senate committees that took up the Affordable Care Act and had hearings and drafted bills. I think there were 3 bills. And they ended up with the fellow Baucus's bill basically being the driver.
Yes, finance
of it. But these 3 committee chairmen and the members of those committees were very jealous of their jurisdiction.
Yes.
Were they not?
Yeah.
Who is the head of the budget committee?
The Senate Budget Committee. I don't know. We would know that if they went through regular order.
We had no idea. That guy doesn't care, apparently.
Yeah, let's check.
I'll look it up for you while you keep talking, but it's just amazing.
Yeah, well, they all got bypassed this time. And again, that brings me back to something that I mentioned briefly yesterday and even beforehand. Not the same 3 committees, but certainly I think I don't remember how they did it in the Senate, but in the House they had to have Ways and Means and Education and Labor and as well as Senate. On the Senate side, there were Finance and Help, and they may have had a third additional budget. Who is it?
Mike Enzi. So
okay.
It figures.
Right. Yeah, so he's nowhere.
Loser. He's a big zero. So of course, whatever they tell him to do, he'll do. But
what was interesting is even just for this reconciliation bill, again, just to go over the basics of it, in order to qualify as a reconciliation bill, you got to have reconciliation instructions in the budget resolution for that year. They've got those. The budget resolution says that as far as the Senate goes, in order to qualify for reconciliation consideration in the Senate, the only bill they'll allow for consideration under reconciliation procedures will be one that saves at least, I don't remember the number that they put on it, maybe it was $1 billion over X number of years, usually 10-year budget window for the Senate, and that the Senate Finance Committee and Senate Help Committees were both directed to report legislation or report changes in current law that would meet that dollar goal. Both of them are supposed to send their reports to the Budget Committee, and the Budget Committee is supposed to package them together and report out a bill. But nobody did that.
Right. And the Senate Finance Committee chairman was Orrin Hatch.
Yeah.
If you're wondering. Back in the Affordable Care Act days, it was Kent Conrad.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He had a lot to say about the bill. In fact, had his cockamamie co-op idea, and he insisted on it. And, of course, that's failed miserably. But he was against the public option. He was for co-ops. Mm-hmm. And the co-ops idea has been, as Dick Gephardt would say, a miserable failure.
So they never did do any of that, and the chairman were not particularly interested in doing it, I guess, and I don't really know why, and I guess it didn't make any difference to the parliamentarian, which is a big puzzle to me as well.
You're saying that would have been a requirement to comply with reconciliation? Yeah,
ordinarily it should be. Now, the excuse that they didn't really make an excuse. They sort of hinted that there was. Well, I asked Sarah Binder on Twitter, and I asked her why doesn't this have to be reported out by the reconciliation instructions say they shall report.
The Health Committee chairman was Lamar Alexander.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that they shall report this bill, and they didn't report this bill because they used Rule 14 to take it directly to the floor. And the best she could offer was, the parliamentarian says that they'll accept the bill because all of the provisions in the House-passed bill would have fallen under the jurisdiction of the two named committees, and there's no extraneous material in it. So there's no jurisdictional question, which would be the more serious. And without that question, they'll just go ahead and basically score it. Okay, it's substance, not form. The committees could have done that, but they didn't. So fine, we're moving on. But to me, I was like, what more basic requirement could you possibly have than just simply to report the thing? And they said, in 2010, when they did the reconciliation sidecar to facilitate the passage of the Affordable Care Act, they did a similar thing. The Senate likewise took a House-passed bill and moved it to the floor through Rule 14 and brought it under reconciliation procedures, even though the named committees in the Senate didn't report the bill. And I said, okay, what was the reason that they said that was okay in 2010? And the answer is, I don't know. And then I looked at the record of the 2010, the legislative record of the reconciliation sidecar. It was very interesting. I saw this fantastic, very super detailed write-up of it, and I read through it. And the House, in passing its bill, its reconciliation sidecar, all the material that was going in it had been worked out already by the committees of jurisdiction, because they had meant to, either include it eventually in the Affordable Care Act or whatever, but it never made it in.
Conference, but then we lost that election.
Yeah. So they have it in reconciliation instead, and they say, all right, we're going to use reconciliation to pass it now that we have lost the Massachusetts special election. Yep. And so they moved it that way. And the committees had already considered all the material, but the committees met again, or at least the Budget Committee in the House side met again. And they said, we're just meeting and we're reprinting the material under a new cover with basically a cover paragraph that says, this is the report that's required by the reconciliation instructions in this year's Budget Committee. We don't have anything to add to this material. You've all seen it before. We've published it before when we originally reported this material out with the bill the first time. But the budget says that the budget committee shall report this as part of the reconciliation instructions. So here it is. They did that for that reason. The Senate did not, but the House did. And for whatever reason, the Senate parliamentarian said, that's enough for us over here on the Senate side. Let's move forward. Now this time the House didn't bother doing that, so nobody's reported it, I guess. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe the House side, they did do that. I guess that's possible, and they could just be relying on that. But even the original, I don't know why they did it in 2010, and it's, I mean, just barely acceptable in 2017 to say, well, I don't know. I'm not even sure what the reason was, but they did it for Democrats in 2010. They should do it for the Republicans in 2017. Although at that point, again, I say, well, hold on. Usually there's a why somewhere, because if the reason why they did it in 2010 doesn't make any factual sense in 2017, if the same pattern, the same fact pattern doesn't establish itself now, then you're talking about something different. The decision on these facts might have been different in 2010. What was the reason? Nobody knows. Okay. You know, to me that means no.
Okay. Yeah,
but now it's yes.
I don't get it. Now,
I don't know either.
The feeling here from Daniel, you can see Daniel's tweet from 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
Is that the skeletal plan that Lindsey Graham says he won't vote for is set up just to go to conference. That he thinks he'll get 50 votes for a blank piece of paper, I suppose.
Hmm.
I don't get it.
What?
I just think I don't get McConnell's point at it. I mean, I think, is that, you know, the whole notion of solving the problem you have in front of you and worrying about the next one after you solve the one in front of you?
Yes.
I sort of feel like that's what McConnell's doing. Okay, my first problem here is getting to the motion to proceed.
Oh, yeah.
And once I get there, then I'll figure out what I'll do after that. But I wanted to ask you a question on something you raised before, because I do think it runs into this other problem, which is the 20 hours of debate. Let's say the 20 hours of debate expire and you have to vote on something. Do you have to vote on something at 20 hours, or does McConnell have the right to just say, well, I'm pulling it back and we're starting over? What is he? What exactly, under the rules, which we know don't really mean anything, what are McConnell's options after the 20 hours?
Well, after the 20 hours expire and nobody is offering any more amendments, normally then the pending question is the final passage of whatever is still standing. I guess there's no reason why he couldn't move to adjourn at that point and just leave it pending. The only rule is that there not be more than 20 hours of debate on the underlying bill, and there's nothing that adjourning and coming back later does to change that. There, just so long as you don't come back and ask for more debate, or if you do, you do so by unanimous consent, and if you get an agreement, fine. But I don't know why they couldn't just not vote on final passage. I've never seen anybody do that, because what would be the point? But I guess they could.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm getting, because normally, as we've talked about this in the beginning, that when you get to the motion to proceed, you usually have your whip count of where you think it's going to end up on the final bill. But, I mean, I guess he knows he's got 48 or 47, or, and he's a few votes short, and normally you can give them a little something to get to the 50 or 51 or whatever the vote is. But he doesn't really know anything, because he doesn't have a final product.
Yeah.
Or even close to a final product, to be honest with you.
Right.
Is there? I mean, is there something that's close that I don't know about?
What, you mean a package that they could get
bill.
through?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm looking at the tweet you mentioned that Daniel has here. Get a motion to proceed through. Let the 2015 repeal only vote fail.
Right.
Throw
like
the $100 billion.
Paul, so he can lose.
Yeah. Throw $100 billion at moderates. Although I don't know whether they're going to do that again as a standalone, or whether they do that en bloc with Cruz, as Axios was saying, and then both fail. But I guess what Daniel seems to be positing here is just the voting on the $100 billion addition to the stabilization fund, I guess, without Cruz, passing that, getting enough moderates to say $100 billion is pretty good, I'll take it, get 50 plus 1 to pass a bill and then send it to conference, and then the House says, yeah, let's strike that $100 billion, and then handing back a conference report that is the bill that otherwise would not have passed the Senate, but handed back now to the Senate with, look, you're one vote away from sending it to the president's desk for signature. Are you going to throw yourselves across the tracks, or are you going to get out of the way? And seeing whether that works as a pressure tactic against wavering Republicans. That's one possibility. You know, you give them the vote to add $100 billion, they take it, and then later on you say, you lost in conference.
Too bad.
Yeah, and then they may say, well, then I'm a no.
Stand in the way of repealing
right, they may still say it's a no, but they may instead say, I tried my best, but if I say no now, the stupid things they say. People will continue to suffer under Obamacare. All right.
Tortured.
Yes.
The torture of the American people is...
It's death. Obamacare is death, kids. You should all know that. Yeah, yesterday's events were amazing. Well, I don't think he said that it wasn't the Boy Scouts he told Obamacare was death. It was the weirdo families that were standing behind him at the
I'm not sure.
Roosevelt Room.
I mean, he said a lot of things to those boys.
He did. He did. And he had them chanting.
How about the story he told about the guy who lost his fortune and his yacht? And, I'll tell him about the life he led, but I really can't because you're just kids.
Yeah.
What is that?
Right. I don't know. I saw everybody tweeting about, that he was telling them stories about his friends' orgies on his boat. I'm like, well, I don't think he actually told that story, but I guess that's what he was hinting at. I wonder who this friend was. I thought it might be Stewie Rah-Rah, but I don't think he lost his fortune. But he certainly had enough orgies.
This has been a very interesting discussion for me, and I hope for the audience. But overhanging everything is there is an insane man in the White House.
Yes.
I know he's bad and he's evil, he's greedy, he's selfish, and he's crude and vulgar and stupid and ignorant.
All those things.
But he's mentally ill.
Yeah. He is. And speaking of which, I guess now we can bring this up. We got I have to go back to my tweet deck here. Kate Sherrill had sent something earlier in the day, and I don't think I got to open it up yet, but saying, here we are, Josh Marshall had tweeted this out, truly amazing, the American Psychiatric Association says Trump is so effing nuts that they're lifting the Goldwater rule.
Are they really?
I don't know. Let's see. This is in Stat News, which I guess is a
That's
medical publication. Psychiatry group tells members they can.
That's appropriate, actually. But okay.
We'll see. Psychiatry group tells members they can defy the Goldwater rule and comment on Trump's mental health. This is dated today.
Wow.
And so at least Josh Marshall took note of it. Yeah, here we go. Finally, I can scroll down.
I would too.
A leading psychiatry group. Yeah. Has told its members they should not feel bound by a longstanding rule against commenting publicly on the mental state of public figures, even the president. The statement, an email this month from the Executive Committee of the American Psychoanalytic Association. That's different. It's not, I don't think that's the American Psychiatric Association. Interesting. So that's a good question. Now, what do I make of this? The American Psychoanalytic Association and its 3,500 members. It's a considerable. Do they even have that rule? I mean, I guess they might also have adopted that rule. Was it their rule to begin with? I don't know.
Well, maybe they're prestigious and respected. I don't. I've never heard of them.
No, me neither.
Psychiatric Association.
I don't know. And when I saw the tweet, I was pretty sure that we were talking about the psychiatric or the psychiatry. Not
the big group for psychiatrists.
Yeah, is that?
It's like the AMA that's just for psychiatrists.
Yeah. All right. Well,
the
interesting.
Goldwater rule. The people who oppose the Goldwater rule.
We should look up what the provenance of the Goldwater rule. I mean, maybe it was their rule and we didn't realize it, or maybe I'm confusing groups even. But it was the American Psychiatric Association's rule. So okay. This is
a companion rule at the time.
Yeah, but
they're lifting it.
It's like this is confusing now, and it seems like it's maybe intentionally so. But the American Psychiatric Association has the Goldwater rule, and here this is from the American Psychoanalytic Association, which unless they've changed their name and they're the successor to the Psychiatric Association, it doesn't mean anything. You can't repeal somebody else's rule. Unless, I guess, if you adopt it in parallel and say, well, we also, for our members, adopt the Goldwater rule, and now we...
McConnell can. McConnell could repeal anybody's rule.
Yeah, maybe that's it. So, I don't know. And I know it's just Twitter, so Josh Marshall was going with abbreviations, but in this case, it's very dangerous to say, truly amazing, the AM Psych Association. That's the AM PSYCH ASSOC is how he abbreviates it. And I'm like, the American Psychiatric Association. No, it's the American Psychoanalytic Association. Oh, well, I suppose that's fair to abbreviate it that way, but not in this context. So be careful with that one. So there you go. Kate asked for our comments on that one. My comment would be, more study necessary.
Yes. Yeah, let's get our facts straight.
Yeah. Well, I hate to be the one to, don't tweet out fake news. You know what? Go ahead. Do it.
Don't have to
go for it. Up. Yeah. No. Yeah. Every time I get fooled by something that turns out to be fake, I used to get upset about it. Now I say, you know what? Who cares? Norms are gone. You know what? Go ahead. Tweet whatever you want. Tweet death threats. Go for it. Do whatever you like. What's the difference? Maybe it's wrong.
I still try to be factual as much as possible, but, I'll put it this way. I look at a lot more tweets than I used to.
Yes.
Right. See if it's true or not.
That's true.
Before I would just...
It's not a bad thing.
Come on. That's not true.
Yeah.
99% of the time.
He couldn't have said that. Oh, he did. Rats. Wow. I try to get it right, but I don't get upset anymore when I get it wrong, considering what's in the news as it is. And, you tweeted something that's a satire. Yeah? Well, I did it while Kellyanne Conway was on Reliable Sources, speaking to 200 million more people than me. What do you want from me? I got it wrong. So what? When do I get to erase what she said from the memories of a million people? Never.
Exactly.
So sorry.
I mean, that's where we are. I mean, it's like, okay. So you were a little loose with the facts. Kellyanne Conway has a job in the White House, so. Yeah.
But isn't that resorting to the same tactics that Donald Trump resorts to by pointing to Hillary Clinton every time you accuse him of something? Yes, and he hasn't disappeared from the scene yet, and no one has been able to discredit him to the extent that he doesn't get quoted in the newspaper or he's not allowed to tweet. So what are you bothering me for?
Right.
He's allowed to do it, so am I.
I mean, you can go through Trump's tweets just today.
Just an hour.
Obamacare is torturing the American people.
Yeah.
That's false, people.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, it's just false. Maybe it's a bad policy. Maybe it's a bad program. It's not torturing anybody.
Mm-hmm.
He said about Sessions, why doesn't he investigate the Ukraine thing based on Sean Hannity?
Yeah.
Saying it. Ukrainian efforts to sabotage the Trump campaign. There were no Ukrainian efforts to sabotage the Trump campaign.
Of which I'm aware.
That's a lie.
Okay.
Where's the investigation, AG? He's yelling at Sessions.
Yeah, so why not, investigate Hillary Clinton? I want to throw her in jail. There's an awful lot.
Jeff Sessions has taken a very weak position on Hillary Clinton crimes.
Oh, yeah, the crimes. Right, the crimes.
Where
Forgot.
Are emails and DNC server and Intel leakers? How come they're all getting away with it?
Yeah. Now, these are the victims of crime.
And then he lied that Andrew McCabe got $700,000 from Hillary.
Yeah.
For a wife. She didn't. The Virginia Democratic Party supported McCabe's wife, who happened to be a candidate for office as a Democrat.
Yeah.
You know, that's what parties do. They support their candidates.
Yes.
Just insane.
How horrible.
So
yeah.
there you go.
Well, he's
so
nuts.
you're worried about, it wasn't the American Psychiatric Association. This morning I just detailed 5 lies from the President of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares.
Or for that matter, issue we didn't bring up yet, but which Media Matters was covering coming out of the weekend, that Fox and Friends forced to issue a clarification after airing false smear against the New York Times, heading into the weekend, telling everybody, oh yeah, by the way, the United States Armed Forces had an ISIS leader in their sights, dead to rights, ready to erase him from the planet. But the liberal, failing New York Times interceded on his behalf and saved his life. And then Trump, of course, tweeting wildly about it over the weekend. It's disgusting. The New York Times is now objectively pro-ISIS, etc. You know, I don't even remember how he put it, but he took this up and ran with it and accused the New York Times of interfering with an ongoing military operation to save the life of an ISIS leader because they love ISIS. What a disgusting, sick anti-American agenda they have. And of course, the truth of it being, no, this is information that was approved for release by the Pentagon months ago, and we reported it as a matter of routine, and Fox and Friends is just lying about it. It had nothing to do with the success or failure of any operation that, that had already happened by the time we printed it. And no one knows what you're talking about. Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe we'll go on the air and give 5 seconds to, well, as it turns out, we were wrong about the failing, miserable, anti-American, sick, pro-terrorist New York Times. They didn't print that thing in time to do that one other thing. But all the other sick, disgusting, pro-ISIS things they're doing stand. All right, thank you for the apology on that one. Look, okay, I got it wrong on a tweet. I admit it. Bye. So, I think I've fulfilled my obligations on that one.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, let's see. Anything else that we need to bring up before?
No, I mean, if you had things you needed to get to, you already.
I'm sure there are, but okay.
There are a couple of things if you're looking for.
Sure. Well, I'll take any suggestions.
I do think the senators, based on my Twitter feed, are rallying to Sessions' defense. The Republican senators, Shelby did, Graham.
What are they defending exactly?
They're
his
saying
recusal?
He's a man of integrity, yada yada.
Well,
ironically, Paul Ryan says the president can hire and fire whoever he wants.
Yeah, sure.
Paul Ryan is really a weasel, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, right. I guess as long as he remains over in the House, I don't know. This is a Senate issue. We're talking about appointments. Can't help you.
He's the Speaker of the House. He doesn't have opinions on how the president is conducting. He had plenty of opinions when Obama was president.
What? Me? No. Yeah, I don't know. He's just trying to stay out of the way. And he was targeted for so much of the campaign season. He just wants nothing to do with it. He knows that Trump has no problem singling him out and getting people to harass him. So
we always hated Ryan.
Yeah, sure.
We saw through him for years and years and years. But remember, he had a media following, including from some Ezra Klein coughed, misguided liberals, and all that's gone. And the other guy who was small but has gotten even smaller is little Marco Rubio.
Oof. Blah.
Little Marco Rubio, you know what he does now? All he does, he tweets about Venezuela and Bible quotes.
Okay.
Seriously, check his Twitter feed. That's all he tweets about.
Well, I guess he figures he's unassailable on Venezuela. There's very few people who would be inclined to criticize him who would know what they're talking about.
Or care. Listen.
Yeah, right.
I have an interest in Venezuela, but I know that 99% of Americans don't give two flying figs about Venezuela.
Yes. Likely true.
But here it is. You want to see his last few tweets?
All right.
Something called about the Taylor Force Act. I don't know what that is.
Me neither.
Okay. Then he tweeted about Venezuela.
Okay.
Something. Venezuela's terrible. Maduro's a dictator. That kind of thing. Then it's the Proverbs. Though the just fall 7 times, they rise again. But the wicked stumble from only one mishap. Proverbs 24:16.
I don't know how you reconcile that with the Trump administration, but okay.
I don't know how you reconcile it.
Yeah, one stumble. Oh, well, okay, let's have that stumble be molesting Miss Teen USA contestants. Oh, hey, it didn't work out. How about grabbing actresses by the... All right, no, that didn't work out either.
Do you think this is a real one? I'd have to look it up. I'm no Bible expert, but this one from 5 days ago is kind of interesting. The glory of the young is their strength, and the dignity of the old is gray hair. That's in the Bible?
I
don't know. An onion version of the Bible. What's that supposed to mean?
I think it might have been in a fortune cookie.
Exactly.
What?
I think.
What?
Hey, listen, it's probably in there because it's
in the King Jim version of the Bible. All right. I don't know. Who knows?
Well,
the Bible's in Aramaic.
From 6 days ago, this is just horrible.
Yeah.
And ironically horrible. Whoever cares for the poor tends to the Lord, who will pay back the sum in full. As he votes to cut health care to 32 million poor people.
Okay. To which Marco Rubio says, neither a borrower nor a lender be. There we are.
Oh, God. So he'll rely on Shakespeare.
Yes.
The secular...
Wait a minute. Didn't Shakespeare write the Bible? Most Americans, I would suspect that...
King James wrote the Bible.
That's right. I forgot. That's absolutely true.
Oh, my God. All right. You got 13 minutes. I'm sure you have other things in your pocket that...
somewhere.
In your
probably.
Pocket, that you probably want to touch on. I don't know if I'll give you one last up. The Boy Scouts did have a statement out today. I don't know if you saw it.
I saw that they had a statement out that said, "Hey, we usually invite the president." Yeah,
we're not partisan. We just condone partisan speeches at our jamborees.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to do more than that eventually.
I would hope so.
But
I hope so. I mean, I thought of you because I remember your boys being in the Boy Scouts all these years.
Right. Well, they still are.
Wow.
I am upset about that. I got a life scout who's got to make the big decision about whether to start out on his project and trail to Eagle Scout, and for what purpose? To endorse this? I don't think so. Something else?
No.
What's the story?
Being an Eagle Scout, that's a big deal, though. So
yeah, it is. They don't want to give that up.
Put so much work into it. I mean, I'm not going to get involved in your how you parent. I just know it's a hard thing to tell a kid.
It is, and it's
you're that close. Don't do it.
Right,
I mean,
and that would be.
My brother, I was a Boy Scout when I was a kid, and I never liked it that much, and I gave it up pretty quickly. But my brother went on and became an Eagle Scout, and it was a proud achievement for him at the time, and carried forward with him for a lot of years.
As it ought to, and it's one of the big discussions lately about my interest in my kids' involvement in the Scouts and talking to other parents. It almost always comes up at some point they're proud of the efforts that the organization makes to stay out of contentious politics wherever they can, and that when it comes to strictly partisan electoral political issues, you can be in the same Boy Scout troop with kids and their parents who are staunch conservatives and ultra-liberal Democrats as well, and there's no conflict. Nothing comes up, and everybody avoids it very carefully. It does sometimes poke through on issues that you can't avoid, like the question of whether to allow for gay scouts and scout leaders, and it does tend to break down on partisan lines, but for the most part, they're able to, you don't have people saying, I'm not going to join that troop, it's full of Republicans. It doesn't work like that.
Nope.
And
it doesn't.
Now it's going to begin
to. It wasn't political at the time, but when I was I've always hated guns, as you know. And I even hated them as a kid. And I remember going to some camp, and shooting was part of the fun. And I did. I shot. And I really was repulsed by it. I was just shooting at targets. It's just...
Yeah. Right, they do that.
It's always... I was never going to be a soldier because I just hated guns, and I respect soldiers. But that... I always wondered later in life, well, what about the gun part of Boy Scouting? Is that an issue politically? And I never actually looked into it, but I assume if you didn't want your son to be involved with guns, they wouldn't force them on you. So
yeah, I mean it's an optional thing, certainly. I found that always kind of weird, and I guess they allow for there's merit badges in riflery and shotgun, and I guess the theory being, well, those are sort of sporting shooting since you're shooting at targets, and it's sort of like, I don't know, I mean, gun heritage and hunting and things like this. The only reason it disturbed me was because, I mean, my kids are trained for a long time in Taekwondo, and I thought, hey, they can get, why is there no, martial arts or Taekwondo merit badge? Oh, well, that's too violent.
Really?
Yeah, that's promoting violence. That's fighting and violence. This is just, gun culture. You're just shooting at targets. How come there's no rock throwing, merit badge? I can throw it at targets.
David got the merit badge in throwing the rock.
Yeah, right? So perfect. Why not?
That's actually pretty illogical. I mean, why not?
I don't know.
I mean, there is competitive Taekwondo.
Sure. Yeah.
That doesn't end up with people getting killed.
Right. Some of it. But yeah, I mean, there's no boxing it's merit badge.
Art. I understand that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be but so's a gun.
Yeah, it's interesting that they allow that, and I think it's just a tradition sort of thing. Like back in the 1920s, they had that was part of just Americana, and you shot at targets.
The whole hunting and fishing thing was pretty Boy Scout. When I was a kid. So
sure, but there's no hunting merit badge, though. There's, I guess, a fishing merit badge. Kill fish. Well, you're supposed to throw them back. Okay, fine. Look at that. I got the messages that Justice sent me. So it just disappeared. My new Skype is too fast for me. But then he got a merit badge for slingshot and archery. Now, archery, I know there is one. Slingshot, I had no idea.
I loved archery. That was fun when I was a kid.
Got a merit badge from the Boy Scouts of Canaan, apparently. Yeah.
Hey, here's one, and I didn't know this. Maybe you did. Michael Moore was an Eagle Scout.
Oh, well, I did not know that.
I didn't either till he tweeted about it a few hours ago.
Yeah, now all the Eagle Scouts are going to come out of the woodwork, which is great. I mean, should remind everybody of scouting heritage. Sure. Trump not involved at all.
Star Scout is tweeting that out.
Who is that?
No Star Scout. Isn't that Star Life? Wasn't there?
Yes, no, that's true. Nobody is. I was a second-class scout. All right, well,
yeah,
that's good.
I was a Weeblo.
That's right. Well, but okay, everybody should be proud of their participation in scouting. Trump did not participate in scouting. One of his boys, Don Jr., at some point did.
It's a shame that this is getting colored this way because
it's a very big tragedy.
It's a global force. It's been a good force for kids all over the world. It's just a shame that they're letting Trump do this to them.
Yes, and I mean, they've had their political issues, and it's taken them way too long to overcome them, but this is one they didn't need. An own goal, they can certainly issue something that says, look, the president is the president, and we thought it was going to be a normal thing to invite the president to speak to the Boy Scouts. We didn't know it was going to get like this. We disapprove of the content. We're not going to call for the president's impeachment. We're not going to call for him being brought up on charges. And we probably will continue to invite presidents in the future and maybe even invite this president again. But yeah, that wasn't what we wanted him to tell the scouts. And we weren't particularly proud of the way the scouts in the crowd reacted either. And we'll be talking about this. This is an opportunity to talk to scouts about what happened. We should take advantage of that, and I assume that there will be places where they do, and in Texas they won't, and I'm sorry about abandoning Texas. There's many good people who will talk to their kids in the local councils, but yeah, statewide I think probably a lot more hooting and hollering and cheering than thoughtful discussion, but at least we have Austin. And hopefully more places.
Yeah, I can recommend... Mark Sumner, who's fantastic, as everybody knows, just posted his story at Daily Kos on the Boy Scout brouhaha.
Ah, okay.
And Donald Trump mistakes Boy Scout Jamboree for Trump Youth Rally.
Yes. And that's exactly what it looked like. It was embarrassing and foolish and, he mistook it for everything. Anytime he sees a crowd, he thinks they're there for him. And it's like, you're the guest here at our event, not the other way around. But he doesn't know how to make himself a welcome guest anywhere. Every place that invites him is about him. He takes what he wants.
I mean, I'm just seeing some of the quotes because I didn't know all of them, but this one is just nuts. President Trump spoke before a small crowd of Boy Scouts today, the fake media will say. This is some crowd. Fake media. What are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's what he did. And I am, it's been pointed out to me this morning that, and right now, Monica now telling us via Twitter that, Trump this morning added the picture of the panoramic photo from the stage of his appearance at the Boy Scout Jamboree is now his Twitter account background, which by all accounts would, I think, be an improper use of the photo for political purposes, but that's the least of our issues.
Oh, it absolutely is, and it's just a slap in the face to the statement of the Boy Scouts this morning.
Yeah.
That said they're nonpartisan.
Yep.
Well, guess who's using you for partisan purposes?
Yep, the guy you invited. I know, it wasn't supposed to happen that way.
We're nonpartisan, Mr. President. Please do not include us in your political activities.
Yep.
Anyway,
well, it comes down to nobody's going to stop them. So it's time for us, to hand the things over to the guys on the after show. Thanks, Armando, for joining in.
Thanks for letting me. After long absence, I had a chance to unwind.
Yes. Well, I appreciate it.
Thanks,
it's an important issue today. Thanks. We'll talk to you again, I'm sure, probably later in the week. And at least we got to focus on the health care bill and the procedure of it. I know the substance of it is what a lot of you would rather discuss, perhaps. But maybe you've made the conscious choice to show up here at the Kagro in the Morning Show for the procedural discussion. It's very difficult to pin down exactly what's going to happen. Anybody who tells you that they know exactly how it's going to go is probably just guessing at best. But, we can give you at least the approximate area that we expect this stuff to land and some sort of viewer's guide to what's going to happen here today. There's plenty more that we're going to have to dissect, both about the supposed healthcare bill, and we'll have another chance at it tomorrow after we see how the motion to proceed goes and we get the opportunity to talk to Joan about it. Many more issues swirling around the legislative agenda going past the healthcare bill, plus any number of, we didn't even get to Trump-Russia today, and kind of felt like a welcome break, really, from that subject. Anyway, let's talk about what's going to come up next when you stay tuned, as you usually do all day long, to Netroots Radio. Up next on the After Show, the Republican congressman moved to defund the Congressional Budget Office for making Trump care look bad. What a great idea that is. Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court ruled that local law enforcement in the state have no legal right to detain immigrants for Trump to deport, and Trump is just leveling the playing field by insisting that if Sessions wants to keep his job, he must open investigations into Hillary Clinton and her family. What about on the last half of today's program, a visit, as usual, with Chris Reeves, a.k.a. Tom Servo 433. That visit, though, interrupted because of power outages in Kansas. My goodness. Should have seen that
Daily
first.
Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Well, as a result of that interruption, they'll instead go over yesterday's court decision allowing the Trump and Kobach Election Commission to continue to collect voting data. Trump's approval numbers down in Kansas, but up in Montana, and the news about Sinclair Broadcasting and all the craziness they're up to next on the After Show with Wink and Justice.